Hello HW7. In this lesson, I'm going to address some of the clarifications you all had about this assignment. Okay, so you should have your homework 7 with you. All right, and we are at page 3 about healthcare. All right, so I broke you all up into groups, okay, to try and identify what's the wrong with the sample answer to the question and try and improve on it. All right, so before I go into explaining some of the questions, I need to explain to you what's the requirement, what's the question asking for. All right, so first of all, can I bring your attention to the question? All right, so the question here, okay, so the keyword, okay, in a test, you might see something that asks you, what can you infer? Okay, so infer basically means what is a guess you can make, and a guess is something that's not obvious. Okay, you can take this down in your worksheet if you would like. Okay, so when I want to give an inference, okay, I also need to support my answer with evidence. Okay, and I'll also need to explain the evidence, how I knew it came up with the inference. So when I gave the crime scene example yesterday, okay, I said your job is not there to just gather evidence. Your job there is to come up with a guess that will be useful in meeting your objective, which is to solve the crime. So you want to say a bit more than what the evidence say. So if you see 2 guns and a knife, you want to infer, you want to guess that maybe there was a big fight. How do you know? Because I had evidence, and the evidence is I see 2 guns and a knife. So the inference is something that is not super obvious and you have to guess it, while the evidence is something that's obvious and you can see it. All right, and you last but not least need to connect and explain how does the evidence show your inference. So how does 2 guns and a knife show there was a big fight? The weapons belong to someone. There might be more than 2 people, so I guess it was a big fight. The weapons was used to hurt people in the fight. All right, so when I ask you in question 3, 4, and 5, what is wrong with the sample answer? Okay, a good answer we know must have 3 parts. Your inference, which is your guess. You must have your evidence. You also need to explain how the evidence show the inference. So let me give you a sample of the first few questions, then you can try maybe the last one. So when I look at the source, okay, what can you infer from source 1? So source 1 tells us the data on the Singapore population from 1896 to 1900. They tell us 2 things, the birth rate, the death rate. So they say between these 4 years, there was about 3,800 births per year, but there were 8,847 deaths per year. So as a historian, you are like an investigator. You need to guess something about what happened in the past. So what you can see is that there's this level of birth rate and there's this level of death rate. So what can you guess about Singapore in the past? In particular, since we are talking about healthcare, maybe you want to guess something about the healthcare in Singapore in the past. All right. So the sample answer that this student write, okay, what's wrong with this sample answer? I can infer that the birth rate was 3,835 per year, while the death rate was 8,847 a year. This was the data on the Singapore population from the 1900. Now, this inference that this student claimed to make 88473835 1900 is already information found in the source. All right, so the obvious mistake is this student is not even inferring, not giving a inference, because he is just stating the obvious. He's just stating what the source already says. So when I mentioned the crime scene analogy yesterday, if you go to a crime scene, yes, it's important to tell me what you see. I see 2 guns, I see evidence. Tell me the evidence, but you must tell me a little bit more, a little bit of a guess, something useful. So if you see that there's the 3,000 death birth rate and 8,000 death rate. What can you guess about Singapore's past? Why is the death rate 8,000 while the birth rate is 3,000? If the death rate is higher than the birth rate, what can we guess about Singapore's healthcare? So maybe I can infer that healthcare in Singapore, okay, was poor. Okay, if you want to take this down, you can take this down now. Okay, in the 19th century. Okay, how do I know this? Because my evidence is birth rate was what's the number? 3835. While the death rate was 8847. So after that, you can explain this means there were more people dying than giving birth, okay, than being born. People died a lot died easily, probably from illness and the healthcare health system in Singapore was unable to treat them. So this answer is missing, most importantly, the inference here, okay, because he's just stating the obvious. So the first thing you must try to do is give me a proper inference, a good guess. Then back it up with evidence and explain. So there's three parts to answer: the inference, the evidence, and explaining how the evidence shows the inference. Okay, feel free to pause the video if you want to take this down. I'll also send it to the WhatsApp, so don't worry. You can do corrections after I mark as well. Okay, I'm going to move on. So if I look at question 2 now, okay, source 2 is a photo of a rickshaw puller and laborers in a Singapore shop house. Okay, and I ask you, what can you tell about living conditions? What can you guess about the living conditions? So tell basically is another word for guessing or another word for inferring. So what can you guess about the living condition? What can you infer about the living conditions of workers in the past? So this person, the sample answer they wrote, the living condition in the past was harsh, which is a good guess because nowhere in the source do you see, did the source tell you directly it was harsh? Was there the word harsh in the source? No. Okay, it's just a picture. So you are able to tell me it's harsh, you are guessing, you are saying something more. So it's a good inference. Yes, so this person has an inference. Okay, but does it have the evidence? Does it explain? So it has an inference. Does it have the evidence? Does it explain? They say they might be easily affected by contagious diseases and suffer greatly from them. Now, this person said the living condition is harsh because they might get diseases. But what is your evidence? Where does the source shows that they can get contagious diseases? Okay, first of all, you must tell me, what do you see in the source? What is the living condition like? Is it very crowded? Is it very hygienic? Okay, so you must tell me what you can see also before you tell me how you know it's harsh. So maybe you can say something like, okay, the living conditions were very harsh because I can see that people are living in very crowded places. The places was very messy. It looks very unhygienic. Then this can mean people will die from contagious disease because disease can spread very easily in a crowded place. Okay, so this source is missing, this answer is missing the evidence. Okay, I'm not going to write down the answer here. Okay, so you go and try and fill it up. I'll go through a bit more And last but not least, source 3. There's an answer here. Can you tell me, is the answer missing the inference? Is it missing the evidence? Or is it missing an explanation? Which one is it missing? Okay, I can infer that the British government was very concerned about improving the healthcare of people in Singapore. So you want to check, is this copied? If it's not copied, then it can be an inference. Okay, this evidence, okay, maybe it has given evidence. Okay, the government set up public health department to tackle health issues to the town area. So we see that the government set up public health department to tackle health issues. This is evidence. So evidence is found. So that's not a mistake. Okay, some of the measures included setting up a malaria committee. So we also have a malaria committee here. So the evidence is quite adequate, but what is missing? The person gave an inference that the government was very concerned because it set up these things, and they gave evidence that the government was concerned by setting up all these committees and departments. So last but not least, you need to explain. The explanation is missing. Okay, so you can write there, there's no explanation. So you want to maybe add a sentence below. Okay, how do you show that setting up these things show that the government was concerned about improving the healthcare? What is the point of setting up the Department of Public Health, setting up malaria committee, draining the swamps? Why does that show that they were being concerned? What were they doing that shows that they were being concerned? What's the point of doing all these things? How does it help with healthcare? Okay, so explain it in one sentence. Okay, and please bring your worksheet. I'll mark it and give you more further feedback. All right, thank you and see you soon.